Hi, my name is Connie Mennie. I'm the Communications Administrator for the City of Marysville, Washington, just about 35 miles north of Seattle. I'm also one of only about 100 Master Public Information Officers in the whole country. I've worked in local government communications for about 20 years. That's most of my career now, and emergency management communications is a part of my training and has been throughout that time. Theory really came into play and was put into practice with the deadly Oso, Washington mudslide in 2014. You may have heard of it. It killed 43 people and is the largest mudslide in our country's history. At that time, mud and debris slid down a mountainside and covered an entire square mile, wiped out 49 homes and a small community. Basically, Oso, Washington doesn't exist anymore. At the time, I lived downriver in another town with my family, and at the beginning of the incident, we were advised to be on evacuation notice. And so it was a pretty suspenseful, maybe 18 hours overnight and into the next day before situation changed and conditions changed, and we were no longer on an evacuation notice. So at that time, I went from take care of my family mode to help my community mode. And I went to work for the Snohomish County Emergency Operations Center as a public information officer in the initial days of activation until the FEMA crews were able to arrive. In the EOC, you get a lot of requests for public messaging, and it's the PIO's responsibility to sort through and sort of triage those requests from most important to least important. So what do people need to hear first? A good example would be, is there an immediate danger, and are there actions that people can take to protect themselves? If so, that's what you need to work on first and get out first. Also in the EOC, you get to work with a lot of subject matter experts, people who are really good in their fields, like law enforcement and public health, public works, social services, utilities, all sorts of things. At the same time, you may be fielding calls from newspaper reporters or the media in general. You could be advising elected officials about what they should or should not say, scheduling news conferences. It can be a lot, and it can be super interesting. When a disaster happens, it's not only common, but really to be expected that there's a lot of disinformation out there. And part of your job is to sort through that and help people be clear about what is true or not true. An example might be that you hear on the radio or see on social media about some people who died, and have those deaths been verified and have their families been notified. And, it's as much as possible, never share that information until it has been vetted, because it's really important that people know that what they hear from us is true. Emergency management, PIO, is a small part of my job as a mid-sized city communications manager. When we experience windstorms or wildfires or power outages, for example, I get that information out to people in my city. That's a more routine example. For some people, PIO is a full-time job, especially in law enforcement or at larger agencies. My advice, if this is something you're really interested in as a career, is to get as much PIO training as you can. FEMA offers free training online for basic courses, and sometimes your state or region may offer those courses in person. After that, I completed the Advanced PIO and Master PIO classes at the Emergency Management Institute in Emmitsburg, Maryland. These are intense, hands-on programs that introduced me to a whole bunch of other immensely talented communications professionals in emergency management throughout the country. My classmates and I now, for several years since then, have become sounding boards and focus groups for one another. We help each other through incidents. We help each other train other PIOs. If I needed help tomorrow, I know one of them would be there, and I would do the same for them. As with all important emergency management functions, PIO work can sometimes be heartbreaking. You see some really hard things. but it's also immensely rewarding to help people in a time of crisis. And really, what are we all here for if not to look out for each other? Thank you.